Hi, this is Recapped Moive. Today, I'm going to talk about a movie called Big Brother, which is a mix of action, drama, and comedy. Be careful and watch out. Henry is back in Hong Kong after years of service in the US military. He goes back to his old high school, Tak Chi, because he wants to become a teacher. The principal points out that he has never taught before. But he gets the job after a letter of recommendation from a higher official is shown to the hiring manager. Before Henry leaves, the school's principal tells him that the class he will be teaching is the worst in the school. When Henry walks into his first class on his first day of school, everything is a mess. Some students are sleeping, some are singing, and some are playing video games, while a lot of them are cooking ramen on a portable stove. Even when the teacher comes in, they don't pay any attention to him and keep doing what they were doing. Henry tries to talk to them, but they act like they don't hear him. He gives up trying to get their attention away from what they're doing and walks around the room making comments about what they're already doing. Because ramen has too much sodium, the students who are learning to cook are told to eat less of it. Henry then goes up to a man named Zufa who is playing the ukulele and helps him. In the same way, he warns a child who likes to play video games about the radiation he might get from staring at a screen all day. When the students finally start to listen, he says his name and writes his phone number on the board. The students laugh at him because he has bad handwriting. Then Henry laughs it off when someone from his class calls him and asks him to leave. Then, the kids just ignore him again and keep doing what they were doing before he came. Henry finally had enough and used a rubber band and some chalk to set off the fire sprinkler in the room. The students quickly moved away from each other so they wouldn't get wet. He finally gets their full attention and welcomes them to his class. 5 of the students with the lowest grades hang out in the sports supply room after class to smoke. Jack, who is in charge of the group, has a crush on an A student in another class. When his friends see him looking at a picture of her, they make fun of him. The group competes with the kids on the school's basketball team who are rich and spoiled. They walk into the supply room and make fun of Jack because he is poor, as they always do. Later, the basketball team practices while Jack and the rest of the group stand nearby and watch. When Jack drops a bottle on the court, the team's leader trips and falls. The group laughs, but the English teacher at the school, Miss Leong, gives them detention. They play a joke on her and run away when she is cleaning her desk to avoid getting in trouble. In another place, the school's principal is upset because the education board plans to take a quarter of the school's annual funding. People from the board come to the school for a tour to see how the money is being spent. At the same time, Henry walks into the classroom, where his classmates have set up a bucket of water to trick him. But his reflexes are faster than the falling bucket, so he is able to push it away. Students who were waiting to make fun of him are surprised. Henry asks Jack for his pack of cigarettes even though he knows that Jack smokes. Jack just gives the pack to him. I'm interested in what he's going to do next. Then, Henry asks Zufa to name the 3 things that are in a cigarette. He can skip class for the day if he answers the question correctly. Everyone starts banging on their desks and yelling that they should also be allowed to skip class. When they stop, he gives each of them a cigarette and tells them to look at it closely. Henry knows that if they just tell them how it affects their health, they won't pay attention. So, he instead asks. He tells them what happens when they smoke and how tar builds up in their lungs. For the first time, they actually pay attention to the teacher and want to learn. After the bell, he tells them to give back the cigarettes, which they do reluctantly. That day, the captain of the basketball team befriends Jack in the cafeteria. Bruce falls and hurts his leg. This leads to a fight between the groups, which ends soon after. It ends up in a fight. They throw food and tables at each other, which breaks everything. Henry finds out later that 5 of his classmates have been temporarily kicked out of school for starting the fight. Henry stops Jack and his opponent from fighting when he finds them in the hall. When Jack was told to calm down, he said the school was unfair because the rich kids didn't get in trouble. That day, when Henry gets home from school, he looks through the files of all 5 students to learn more about them. The first guy's name is Zufa. He is the son of a Pakistani immigrant. Because of his race, he has always been treated badly. In his neighborhood, the police often say that he steals. Zufa wants to be a musician more than anything else. Dinan is the name of a girl who is the second student. Since she was born, her father was sad because he had always wanted a son. Dinan has spent her whole life trying to earn the respect of her father. She even cut her hair short and pretended to be a boy by playing with cars. But her father doesn't care about her, while he treats her younger brother like a prince. Then there are Bruce and Chris, who are brothers. When they were young, their mother ran away with a man, which made their father become an alcoholic. When they were young, the brothers could only count on each other. Chris worked hard at a grocery store to make money for the family while Bruce became obsessed with video games as a way to escape reality. Last but not least, Henry can't find out anything about Jack's family. In the next scene, we see Jack at work as a waiter in a restaurant. Jianying and his business partners come to the restaurant to bet on MMA. Jack steals Jianying's fancy lighter when he isn't looking, but he is caught. As he checks Jack's ID, Jianying's men beat him up. When he found out he was a student, he gave him some money and told him he could deliver their food. Henry goes to Zufa's house somewhere else and finds him running away from his father and his friends because he stole a ticket. At first, he helps him, but when he finds out why, he stops. When he is being chased, he sticks with his father. Then, he and Zufa go to the bridge to hang out. Henry sings with a street band to get Zufa to do whatever Henry wants. Then, a few seconds later, Zufa joins him and sings in front of people for the first time since she was picked on in school. The father of Bruce and Chris comes home. Like always, he is late, so he tells them to get him a beer from the store. When the brothers say no, he tells them to leave his house by yelling at them. The next day, Henry talks to their father and convinces him that his son would be better off if he went to rehab. While this is going on, Danan's father brings her a. She gives her the bag of makeup and tells her to finally act like a girl. Danan is mad at him because he always makes her think she is not good enough. She puts makeup on her little brother and then sneaks out of the house with the key to the car. She is about to leave in her dad's car, but Henry pulls her over just in time. He tells her that it's against the law to drive without a license and offers an alternative. After that, they go to a place where they can race go-karts. Henry as well. She asks her father over and makes them run. Neither the father nor the daughter is kind to the other. They end up outside the track in the end. Danan's go-kart is suddenly hit by a car, but she is able to avoid it. Her father, who doesn't know this, is crying because he thinks his daughter has died. Danan. She realizes that he really does love her, and she hugs him. The next day, Bruce and Chris went to school. They are sent to a rehab center to talk to an alcoholic who is getting better. They are surprised to see that their father is the person they have to talk to. The students want to know why he started drinking. The man says that he loved his wife very much, but that she left him when he was at his worst. So, he started drinking and forgot to take care of his 2 kids. The man doesn't tell Bruce and Chris that they're his sons, but he does say he's sorry. Bye. At the end, the brothers can't help but cry. Jack has begun to work for MMA betting on Jianying somewhere else. He offers Jack a lot of money to poison a fighter's drink at the next match. Jack doesn't want to take the offer, but he has to. Jianying backs a fighter on the day of the fight, but he bets money on him to lose. Jack gives the fighter drugs in his drink, but he gets caught. Before he can say that Jianying did it, he is hit and put in a locker. Henry gets there a little while later and asks the fighters if they've seen his student. The men tell him to go home, but Jack yells for help from inside the locker. Henry finds out he is being trapped after he finds out where he is. He goes after them and easily beats them. When the fighters step off the stage, things get a little tense, but Henry is able to avoid their attacks well. At the end, he knocks out their best fighter, who was supposed to fight in a few minutes. In the next scene, they are at the hospital where Henry is getting treated for his wounds. Jack tries to tell Jianying the truth, but he is told to shut up. When Henry hears about what happened, he is known as the man who beat up a professional fighter to save his student. He gets more and more popular at school, and people start to look up to him. Unlike before, they even stand up to greet him when he comes into the class. A look back. This shows that when Henry was in school, he liked to play tricks on people. At an event for parents, he even threw water balloons at a student who was playing the piano. He fought with the same student again later and broke his hand. After the fight, he was kicked off the team and had to fly to the US. From that day on, the students pay close attention to what Henry says in class and work hard to pass the test to get into college. Everyone is doing well, but Bruce has become dependent on pills. It turns out that while Chris played video games to get away from the problem in his family, Bruce started doing drugs. He does very badly on the mock entrance test because he can't keep his mind on one thing. Henry says he will help him, but Bruce's mood keeps getting worse over time. He jumps off the balcony of their house in the end. He is taken to the hospital right away, where he falls into a coma. The news is twisted by the media, and the school and Henry are blamed for what Bruce did. The education board officials talk to Henry and decide to take away his license to teach. When he packs up his things and leaves school, his classmates chase after him and ask him to stay. They are sad that he isn't there, but they know they need to do well on their next test to make him proud. After that, they worked twice as hard on their studies to show the board that Henry is a good teacher. On the day of the test, Jack and all of his classmates get a text from Henry telling them to meet at school an hour before the test. When the students get together, they find out that Jianying's plan was to keep them in school so they wouldn't be able to get to the exam hall on time. He is trying to teach Henry a lesson by doing this. After a while, Henry went to school and found out what Jianying had planned. He lets the kids go. He sets all of Jianying's people free so that they can't hurt the kids. They run away and get to the exam hall quickly while Henry fights Jianying. While they are fighting one-on-one, Jianying tells Henry that he was the kid who used to throw water balloons at him when he was young. It turns out that Henry couldn't compete in a big music competition because he broke his arm. He hasn't touched a piano since the incident, and he blames Henry for ruining his dream. Henry tries to talk Henry down. He tries to kill him, but he fights back. They try very hard to get a knife. Henry finally gets a. He tries to kill him, but he fails. He says sorry for what he did when he was young, and then he walks away. The students get to the testing room on time and finish the test. A few weeks later, they all pass with perfect scores. Jianying starts to play the. He is back to playing the piano, but he needs a lot of practice to get back to how good he used to be. Bruce gets better quickly and says he'll go to the entrance test next year. The principal is also happy because the board decided to give them a 20% bonus fund because their students did so well on the entrance test. Henry goes back to school to teach, and he does the fire sprinkle trick on a new group of students. Sign up to get more videos like this one. Turn on the notifications and click like to help the channel. We're glad you watched.